Hey golfers, it's Dave from Fit2 Golf. These are my top 5 tips for the beginner or hobbyist club maker. Some of these are things that I kind of learned the hard way before I got any formal training, and some are things I picked up in classes or for other club makers. So let's get started with number 1, which is get a scale and weigh everything. If you have a scale, you can weigh your components and you can enter those numbers online in one of the calculators to figure out swing weight if you don't have a scale. You can check the weight of your club heads to make sure that they come in at spec or if they're going to need some tip weighting. If you know the weights of your shafts, you can sort them lightest in the longest clubs and heaviest in the shortest clubs. The reason for this is because less weight is coming off those longer clubs in terms of tip trimming and butt trimming, and this helps to maintain a more constant weight across the set. Since weight and flex tend to be correlated, this will also help you get a kind of an even or close to even flex across the set, even if you don't have a frequency meter to do that tip trimming. Okay, number 2 is get a ferrule starter. Now, whenever you have a ferrule like this that just won't get past the tip of the shaft, you kind of know that you have a good news, bad news scenario. The good news is, once you get it on, it won't come loose. The bad news is getting it on can be quite a hassle. That's where this comes in handy. This fits over the top. You can press it on or pound it on the ground, get it started about 1/2 inch, and then the club head can do the rest of the work. Tip number 3 is invest in a good vise. You're going to use your vise more than any other tool in your workshop. You're going to use it to clamp a shaft so you can install a grip. You're going to use it for tip prepping. You're going to use it for ferrule finishing. You might use it for cutting. You're going to use it a lot. So get a heavy-duty vise, preferably one with some different attachments that can softly hold the shaft or club head, whatever you're working on, and you'll be glad that you put some money into this investment. Tip number 4 is don't use too much epoxy. I think when we all started out, we probably thought, it's glue, more is better. But actually with epoxy, less is more. All you need is just a little bit to line the hosel and then a little bit on the tip of the shaft. So when you put it together, twist it, listen for that release of air through the shaft, all you should see is just a little bit coming out around the ferrule. You don't want to use too much because you run the risk of creating a shear point, which is basically a solid buildup of epoxy above the hosel, and the club can break. I recently pulled apart a set of shafts that I'm sure was assembled by a well-meaning hobbyist because the epoxy was between 5 and 6 inches up the tip section of the shaft. I had to go out and buy an extra long drill bit just to carefully drill it out so I could reuse the shafts. And finally, tip number 5 is use Brampton's grip solvent. Now, unless you're blowing your grips on with air, which is a perfectly acceptable method, or unless you have a gripping station, if you have a gripping station, you're probably not watching this video. Your tendency is probably going to use too little amounts of grip solvent when you're putting on your grips. How many of us have had a grip stuck halfway on, unable to get it off, maybe having to cut it and ruin the grip? Brampton's is a little bit more money, but you just spray a little bit into the grip and a couple dribbles on the shaft. The grip will slide right on. You'll have ample time to work with it to line it up the way that you want it. Now, sure, the downside is that it takes a couple hours to dry. You're not going to hand it to a golfer and say, here, go play. But that extra workability time is really going to save yourself time and money. So post your comments below. Let me know what tips you have, things you've picked up along the way. Look forward to more reviews and club fitting videos coming up, and stay positive.